Hey, do you need me? Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, September 20th at 5:30 p.m., and we're calling this regular meeting of the Wake County Board of Education to order. I would like to welcome you, those of you that are watching at home and those that are here in person to observe as the Board of Education conducts its official business. I want to take a moment to highlight Board Policy 2310, which states Wake County Board of Education meetings are conducted for the purpose of carrying on the official business of the school system. The public is cordially invited to attend board meetings to observe the board as it conducts its official business. Persons who willfully interrupt, disrupt, or cause disturbances at an official meeting may be directed to leave by the presiding officer. Members of the audience should show respect for the speakers by refraining from loud comments or other disruptions. Disruptions by any person or persons of a public meeting will be subject to action in accordance with General Statute 143-318.17. All of our board members are present today, as well as Superintendent Moore and our board attorney, Mr. Blumberg. If you would all stand and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much. We're going to move on to our information items, and we will begin with the superintendent's comments, and very excited for our information item today, later on, hearing from some of our students and families. So, Superintendent Moore.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman Haffey, board members. It was a day of celebration at Weatherstone Elementary on Friday when the news broke that Weatherstone had been named a 2022 National Blue Ribbon School by the U.S. Department of Education, marking it as a national model of effective school practices. This is one of the highest honors in education. Weatherstone was one of 297 private schools honored nationwide this year, and one of just 5 from North Carolina. Weatherstone was deemed an exemplary, high-performing school for the many ways it facilitates strong student achievement. As a STEM school, Weatherstone engages students with project-based learning in science, technology, engineering, and math. Weatherstone also has a STEM special that all students attend every week, which focuses on digital citizenship, the engineering design process, technology, and innovation. The school prioritizes partnerships with partners and local businesses, which helps create a community focused on making sure that all students have the resources and opportunities they need to succeed. These partnerships, along with the dedication of the Weatherstone staff, were essential amid the disruption of the pandemic. Proud Principal Tim Chadwick says, our entire school community demonstrated resilience, commitment, and ingenuity to continue effective teaching and learning under unprecedented circumstances. It took all of us working together to make this award possible. Weatherstone is now the 12th WCPSS school to attain this honor. School representatives will travel to Washington in November to officially accept the award. Congratulations to every Weatherstone student, staff member, and family on this remarkable achievement. Last week was Arts in Education Week, and we would like to highlight and congratulate Janice Withers, a visual arts teacher at Apex Friendship Middle School, who has been named Middle Level Art Educator of the Year by the North Carolina Arts Educators Association. Ms. Withers has been a visual arts teacher in our school district for 16 years. She taught at East Garner Magnet Middle School and Centennial Campus Magnet Middle before joining Apex Friendship Middle School in its inaugural year of 2018. Ms. Withers initially wanted to teach fine arts at the college level, but fortunately for us, she fell in love with teaching middle school when she was a student teacher. Each day, there is an excitement in the art studio, and I enjoy watching the students grow and develop as artists over the course of 3 years, she says. I can truly say that I am constantly growing and learning from my students how to become a better art educator. Ms. Withers will officially receive her award at the Arts Educators Association Conference next month in Wilmington. Arts education has many benefits for students, including supporting the development of the 4 C skills: communication, creativity, collaboration, and critical thinking. As Ms. Withers puts it, the arts allow us to express our thoughts, communicate our ideas, document historical events, and bring communities together. The arts can be therapeutic, and arts education allows students to work collaboratively with their peers, which helps them learn multiple perspectives outside of their own. My thanks to Ms. Withers and all of our outstanding arts teachers for the countless ways they support the growth, development, and well-being of our students. That concludes my comments.
Thank you, Superintendent Moore. And being in Ms. Withers' art classroom, just like any of our art classrooms, is always just amazing to see our students creating. I was excited to see last week many of our schools announce their cast lists or what musical they would be doing or play. And Ms. Carter, Superintendent Moore, and I got to go to the Bands of Cary preview at Green Level High School, which, despite a storm, instead of being on the football field, as many of our teachers are able to do, very quickly moved it into the gymnasium, and it was incredible to see 3 different performances. Ms. Scott, as a former member of the Marching 100, and I think you would have enjoyed it a lot. I'm sorry you weren't there, but it was phenomenal, and just very excited to see all the work that they are doing in our arts programs. We had our Board Advisory Council meeting last night at Apex Friendship Elementary School. And I'd like to thank the Shooting Stars PTA for hosting, and they already had their 5th grade safety patrol ready to invite us in, so everyone knew how to find the library. It's a very unique carpool lane over there and a really interesting exit to that school. You go back into the woods. We talked, Glenn Croza was with us to talk about assignment, and although no preview was given, just talking about how they come up with the plan and the 4 pillars and what we look at when it comes to assigning students, and then heard from the Friends of Wake about the upcoming bond referendum that will be on the back of everyone's ballot. And with that, those are my comments, so I'd like to turn it over to Vice Chair Haggerty.
Thank you, Chair Mahaffey. Just very briefly, I want to acknowledge that I haven't been present the last few weeks. Many of you know, and I really appreciate the kind words and the sympathy that's come out. We did lose a family member this month, and it has been a difficult time for the family. So I am behind. I'm slowly getting back to respond to emails and phone calls and everything. And we just ask for your grace and understanding as we move forward. And now I promise we'll get caught up and we'll move forward from there. But thank you all for your kind words.
Thank you. Let's start with Ms. Kushner.
No comments this evening, thank you.
Dr. Martin?
Thank you. We will be, District 5 will be holding its BAC on October the 3rd. It's Monday, October the 3rd at 5:30 at Combs Elementary School. Topics will be the student assignment and hopefully somebody from the Friends of Wake County to discuss the bond issue. Also want to highlight Swift Creek Elementary School in my district is getting ready to celebrate their 90th year as a school. They're going to have a celebration on Saturday. I'm not going to be able to be there because of a family engagement in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So, but just wanted to highlight that. 90 years as a school is impressive. That school has done a lot in that community, and it will be fun to celebrate their history. Finally, I do want us to pay attention, as always, to what's happening with respect to COVID issues. Last week, there were 371 student cases, 110 staff cases. As perspective, that's about 90% of what it was 1 year ago for students, though remember that we were 1 week later. But also important to recognize for students is that 1 year ago, we were trending down, but we're still trending up. Between last week and the previous week, we were up by 16%. So student cases are still going up. Like I said, they were going down 1 year ago. Staff cases are at 2.3 times what they were last year. So whether you want to say the pandemic is over or not, which health people do not say, it is still here. And if 110 staff cases were there, that means somewhere on the order of 100 classrooms did not have a teacher in that classroom. So we need to get vaccinated. We need to take this seriously. It is impacting employment and education. Thank you.
Ms. Scott.
Thank you and good evening. Really thankful for all of our arts teachers in the Wake County Public School System. For those of you who don't remember, last September, our board signed a resolution to commit that arts are education, and they are a critical part of the experience that our students have in our schools. Not only do they sometimes bring people in to the school buildings where they may not be excited, they have some things going on, worried about a core subject, but they are excited about a fine arts teacher who they're going to be spending time with. And you could go on and on and on about the research that shows that kids who participate in music have higher test scores, but that's really not what it's about. It's about developing people as a person. It's about empathy. It's about working with each other. It's about being creative, collaborative, thinking, critical thinking. All of this occurs in our fine arts, and that's everything from dance to theater to music to visual arts and so on. So they are education, absolutely, and the arts are humanity, and they teach us empathy. And I'm thankful that we have them, and hope that we can continue to celebrate our arts. And I'm excited that we get to hear some arts this evening as well. I'll let Ms. Cash talk about the joint BAC meeting that we had last night, but I did want to extend a huge thank you to District 3 for opening up their doors for our joint BAC meeting. And I was telling Ms. Cash, my very first BAC meeting was a joint one with her, so it was nice to still be able to squeeze one more joint meeting in before our tenures on this board come to a close. It was also Instructional Assistance Day, week. I can't keep track of the day. Maybe, it should be year-round, right? But I wanted to just say thank you for everything that they do, and we need more of them in the school. And please remember that there are the upwards of 9,000 to 10,000 fewer state-funded instructional assistants now than there were about 10 years ago. So it is not the doing of this school system that is coming from the way our state funds education, and I would hope that folks who are critical about that might take a look at the way our funding works in the state of North Carolina when it comes to education. But our instructional assistants do so much, and I wanted to just give a shout out to them. It was an instructional assistant who changed the trajectory of what my why when it comes to education. I've told that story many times before, but a person who took the time to really get to know students and told me more about my students, things that I would not have known. And And it turned me around from realizing that it was my job to lift up students, and always looking for ways that we can tear down barriers that might be in their way. So thank you to them, and that concludes my comments for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Ms. Johnson-Hostler.
Thank you very much, and I echo my colleagues' sentiments regarding our appreciation for our IAs and expressing the grave need. As I said earlier, I've had the great opportunity to speak to several of them who are offering themselves to do more with less time, giving the need to meet the needs of our students. And so my sincere appreciation to all of them. And just a few updates. Our BAC is next Wednesday at Bryan Road, one of our schools that will be going through some assignment changes. So to make sure people know, it starts at 6 p.m., and we'd love to hear your comments. And I also will echo that we'd like to also make sure you put those comments on our thought exchange, since they're being rated. So we'll have both places for you to be able to engage in conversations as District 2 undergoes probably some of our most substantial assignment changes in my tenure on the board. So I look forward to having that conversation, and thank the student assignment staff in advance for joining me at Bryan Road next Wednesday. And then the last thing I'll say is I adore my district, and many of you know I went from one high school in my district to 3, and Garner never disappoints. We had the Garner Bowl on Friday. So I will say now that South Garner has had a varsity team. Last year Garner won. This weekend South Garner won. Mr. Cook, are you shaking your head over there? He couldn't even control it. But it is an amazing time. Everybody comes and everybody's excited. It is truly a community event at the school. And I still love the fact that the Garner, the little water tower bowl has both schools on each side, which I almost forgot when they were running with the South Garner. I was like, oh my God, the Garner side's gone. But they hit it very well so that we would only see the South Garner side who won. So it was indeed a great time, and thank you to all of the support that our community comes out and supports our high schools. And again, the beauty of seeing, no surprise, this side of the table loves our athletics, but we also got to see all of our bands, and not just our marching bands, but our dancers and our cheerleaders, and the amazing school spirit. So again, the Garner Bowl is another one in the books, and I appreciate the town and all the community support. And I'm just going to next time ignore Mr. Cook's head nodding at me. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cash.
Yeah, I'm going to miss homecoming from Millbrook High School, but Ms. Johnson-Hostler will be there, and she will be taking good care of everybody. Ms. Johnson-Hostler and I actually did visit Millbrook together last Tuesday and had some time to meet with Dr. Saunders, and all the AP staff was coming our direction. They know when we're there, and they're so friendly there. They just came, and we spent a lot of time. We had a good time, and we got to talk about a lot of things that is going on at Millbrook High School, and it was a good visit. I think it was a really good visit. And yes, art. I love art. My daughter is an art teacher, and she is a wonderful artist. But when she went to school in Wade County, all 4 of my children got great educations. She struggled a little more than the boys did, but if it wasn't for the great teachers that literally understood that art was her passion and got her involved in art, like drawing a map in geography or whatever they called that, and doing art in every class so that she would learn the facts while she was doing it, and then had the best art teachers through Hunter and Ligon and then Millbrook High School, and went on to be a very successful art teacher, and that was her success. So I appreciate art so much, and it did a lot for my family. And the back meeting that we did have, our Board Advisory Council meeting, was last night. And Heather and I, Ms. Scott and I, had a really good time of having our 2 BACs together and remembering how we started it that way. We had almost 100 people there between the 2 BACs, so it was a very informative night, and we had lots of good questions. And I thank we were at West Millbrook Middle School, and they were all ready to show us their new school they've been waiting for so long, and it was exciting. Kelly Amon, the principal there, was just so excited to show her new school. They decorated the cafeteria all up for a dinner that we had prior to going in, and then to the media center. And Russ Smith and his staff were there and did a very good presentation on safety and security. Went back and talked about the risk assessment that we had started in 2019, long before a lot of the things had come out recently. So we were looking at this for a while. A lot of questions, a lot of conversation about safety and security in our schools. Good answers, good discussions, and we also had a little bit of information about where you can sign up to be a tutor for the Wake Together. So we put that out there and talked a little bit about the bond. And then I got a brick presented to me by Ms. Amon from the oldest part of the building from the West Millbrook, and she had the contractor there, the builder had put together bricks for all the teachers and 3 or 4 extra ones, and had actually cleaned them all up really good from the oldest part of the building, put little felt things underneath them so it wouldn't scratch wherever you set it. And so I got mine presented to me last night. It was really exciting and meant a lot. So it was a good night last night.
That is so sweet. Oh, my goodness. No, we didn't get a brick from you. Oh. Dr. Robinson. Miss Carter.
Hard to follow that. I'll try. I did want to follow up and appreciate fellow board members recognizing IA Appreciation Day as well. That was last Friday. I know I've said it a lot, but being a former special ed IA, I've seen a lot of transformation from a district perspective, within the district, on the respect and value that has become more evident and more, to me, pronounced over the several years, with the creation of IA Empowerment Days, with professional learning, and various things, and pay raises. That helps as well. But truly, I have seen a transformation more pronounced, because sometimes it would depend. And I know what it's like. Some feel like you go unseen in the school building, and folks aren't quite sure what you do. But the students that you work with, especially if you're in special education, those parents will sometimes come and say to folks, well, this IA does this and this and this, and folks are like, really? I had no idea. Or if you go and you push into a classroom to help with students, and having folks be like, oh, had no idea. And I just think the more we spread, I guess, information about their roles, and it can vary, and I think that's also something that is unique. You can show up and one day you're doing X and another day you're doing Y. And the flexibility that is shown in being able to wear so many different hats. I just appreciate all that you all do, and appreciate you continuing to show up for our students and staff. And I too want to congratulate Weatherstone Elementary School. That is a huge honor, and just shout out to all the staff there, and the students and the families. Superintendent Moore spoke a lot about that, so I appreciate that. And for athletics, because yes, we love our athletics over here. I enjoyed Apex versus Green Hope soccer game. That was interesting. But I did want to speak. The goalie for Apex really impressed me. One of the Green Hope kids, well, I shouldn't say kids, I guess, or high school. I call them all kids. Students went down, and he left and checked and really went over and spoke to him. And to me, that meant a lot, because he didn't have to do that. And it, to me, speaks to character. And so I was very impressed by that. Also, before my back meeting, I attended of course I did, went early, got the Cary High versus Green Hope High JV volleyball. Couldn't get the varsity varsity end due to timing, but it was great to be able to catch some volleyball action. And then Green Hope and versus Apex Friendship football game. And always enjoyed the band, the dance team, cheerleaders, all of that, and had several students that kind of took over the crowd, shall we say? Because I love to sit in the student section. I don't sit, actually. I stand the whole time. We don't. And so, I mean, like, they took charge, and it was pretty awesome. They had so much teams, just the spirit going, running back and forth, had the thing literally rocking. A few times I was like, okay, are we going down? You know, okay, we'll all go down together if we do. But it was just great. It was great. That's what it's about, just the atmosphere. Even if the outcome isn't what you want on the scoreboard, keeping that going. So had a blast. And yes, the Bands of Cary event, I always love that. I mean, I went last year, and it was at Green Hope, and it was outside. It was totally different because some folks still weren't comfortable because that was a big crowd. It was outside. This year, I felt like we were just packed, and so many folks there supporting everyone and kicking it off. To me, I love the first number, which is when they all come out and perform together, the national anthem. It's all the bands, and it's just, to me, that's what we're here for, right? They're going to be competing against each other, you know, but that first united performance is awesome, and getting some sneak peeks into what their performances are coming up, and I just love it. So I also had the opportunity to visit Laurel Park Elementary School. It was a little different of a visit. It was a teacher working on her master's degree and taking a school law class. So it was interesting. It was kind of learning more about that class. And then part of her assignment was she had to watch a board meeting and then interview board member. So different role, but it was interesting. I did my best to answer a lot of questions, but I had my, assignment, Also, I appreciate the opportunity to visit Morrisville Elementary School. And it's a new, coming to D9, so it was great just to see the school, learn, and got to meet quite a number of staff members and students, and learn that they apparently have a lot of quote-unquote animal visitors at times during recess. So I love to hear some of those stories and some of the students following up about what happened yesterday and how was that duck doing, or whatever type of wildlife that was. So it was interesting. And I did have the first back meeting for this school year, and I wanted to thank Cary High School for hosting it and their culinary arts department. Those students just did an amazing job with the dinner. My idea was for back meetings we could just go around and learn all about the CTE culinary arts programs, all the different things, and put it see it in action. I just really enjoyed being able to showcase those students' abilities and talking to each of them before to see if they really like this outside of school. And it was very interesting to me how some love cooking for others. Others don't. They wanted to cook, but only if it was just for themselves. So, but they all liked cooking outside of school, which was awesome, and enjoyed and really appreciated Ms. Honeycutt coming out and speaking to the back about the CTE offerings and really breaking it down by school and also the credentials. And it was I thought it was very informative, very helpful, because we often get questions about, or I do, about what school offers this and what school offers that and how does this all work together. And it was great to see that all in a presentation. And just for those who are wondering, I'm going to go ahead and y'all can, our next back meeting is in October, and it's October 24th, and it's going to be at Apex High School at 6 p.m., and it will be on, by then we'll be on draft 2 of the student enrollment plan, so that will be our topic for that evening, but if you're interested. And then I'm going to close with, because y'all know I love my plays, so I wanted just to hit on a few in case you're looking at your calendar and thinking, what can I do in the next month or so? Cary High School will be performing Clue September 28th through October 1st at 7 p.m. Apex High School will be performing Walk Two Moons on October 20th through 22nd at 7 p.m. They will also have a sensory-friendly matinee at 2 p.m. on Saturday, October 22nd. And Green Hope will be performing Leaving Iowa, October 20th through 22nd at 7 p.m. So appreciate your patience with that. And I encourage you all to come out and support our students, whether it's in the arts, athletics, just come support them. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Waters.
Thank you, Chair Mahaffey, and so many wonderful things going on around the district. I had a chance over the weekend to run into one of my sixth grade classmates from East Millbrook Middle School, and so it was great to see her. And I actually recently found my T-shirt from 1989-90 school year, but it was not magnet back then, and so Ms. Cash has promised me a visit to East Millbrook. So I'm not sure if I'm going to wear that shirt, but I'm looking forward to getting over to East Millbrook. And I'm so excited to share about the District 4 BAC meeting. We have a wonderful new BAC chair. Her name is Tamara Oyejide, and she is working really hard to get everything set for our meeting, which is going to be on Tuesday, September 27th at 6:30 p.m. And thank you to Enloe High School for welcoming us and being willing to host us. And also, one last thing. Earlier today, I had a chance to go to a meeting that was held at Wake Up and Read. It was a meeting of lots of different organizations that depend on volunteers. And so I learned so much more about what Wake Up and Read does in our communities. And so I love when my children come home with their orange bags. And so it's amazing to see that they are also working with other organizations like the Green Chair Project and the Marcus Harris Foundation to send books out to homes in collaboration with other programs. So Wake Up and Read is amazing. I love running into Marissa, Beth, and Lori. I see them at so many events, and I appreciate all that they do to increase literacy around for our children and to make sure that children have access to books. So very grateful for Wake Up and Read, and so thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Waters. And Ms. Kushner, something came to your mind.
Okay, thank you
before
for circling back to me. Just wanted to thank the counselors at the Wake Young Men's Leadership Academy, which is a new school to District 6, for inviting me and giving me the presentation for their RAMP National Model Counseling presentation. It was really great to these. As y'all know, it's a grade 6 through early college, and they have 2 counselors, one for middle school, one for high school. So those 2 women wear many hats for many students. So it was really great to hear their updates and how they're focusing on students who need extra assistance as well as the whole school. So thanks to them, and best wishes for them as they get their designation.
Thank you. There's one thing that we did not mention, and that was intentional because we have a very special presentation for our information item, and that is to celebrate the start of National Hispanic Heritage Month, which began on September 15th and goes until October 15th. And so we have some folks here, Dr. Chavis, Dr. Rangel, to share some information, and we're always excited to see our students here as well. So thank you for being here.
Good evening, Chair Mahaffey, Vice Chair Haggerty, board members, and Superintendent Moore. We are so excited to be with you all this evening, and we have a very special treat for you. National Hispanic Heritage Month is an annual observation starting September 15th and going through October 15th, which recognizes the contributions and the influence of Hispanic Americans to the history, culture, and achievements of the United States. The start of Hispanic Heritage Month marks the independence of 5 Latin American countries: Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. The designated period also includes recognitions of individuals from Mexico and Chile who celebrate their independence on September 16th and 18th, respectively. This evening, district and school representatives will share and highlight some of the ongoing efforts and honor and celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month in the Wake County Public School System. I yield now to Dr. Maria Rosa Rangel, Director of Family Academy and Community Engagement of the Office of Equity Affairs, for a special presentation.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be in front of the school board. And just a little bit, as you know, we are celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, so we need to know a little bit about what's the impact. So there are, and thank you, there are 6.6 million Hispanic Latinos as of July 1st, 2019, making us Hispanic origin the nation's largest ethnic or racial minority. Hispanics constitute 18.5% of the nation's total population. There are 12 states with a population of 1 million or more Hispanic Latinos as of 2019. Let me read them to you and see if you recognize one of them. Arizona, California, Colorado, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Texas. I wonder what the population will be in North Carolina. Let's find out. Over the last decade, NC Hispanic Latino population has grown by 25% of the state population, and now greater than 1 million people, with 1,026,000 residents in 2019. Hispanic Latinos comprise 1 in 10 NC residents. 17.9% students in NC public schools are Hispanic Latino. 14% of first-time, full-time students in NC Community College are Hispanic Latinos. And there are 30,201 WCPS students in Wake County Public Schools. Let me tell you how many are in elementary and how many are in middle and high school. There are 12,985 Latino students in elementary school. We have some elementary and middle schools, and there's 95 students. In the high schools, we have 9,683 Latino students. In middle school, 7,252. In the middle high school, we have 115. In the special option schools, we have 71, making us a total of 30,201 Latino students. And I wonder how many WCPS employees we have. Let's see. There is a total of 1,102 out of 19,841. So 1,102 are Latino, Hispanic descent. There are 462 teachers who are Latino out of 10,835. And central services, 154 out of 2,775, and 134 central service employees, not including cafeteria staff, bus staff, IAs, or teachers. Principals, that's what I really want to know. How many principals we have? 7 out of 199, and 14 assistant principals out of 403. I often wonder, so now we know, but also we are very, very proud of the intentionality of Wake County Public Schools. As you know, we have our first Latina woman superintendent here, Kathy Quiroz Moore, and we are so proud of her. And obviously now we have our Chief Officer of Communication, Lisa Luton, so we are very proud. And of course, we have many dedicated teachers, and it is my pleasure, but obviously before I introduce you to our guest speaker, I want to tell you something that Latinos contribute to the economy, and we are everywhere. You can find us across the spectrum in North Carolina. For example, are you aware that we contribute $25 million in the economy that impacts North Carolina? That is $25 billion that we contribute. And of course, we are hard workers. That's something that it's a proud trait of Latinos. And we work in every aspect. You can find us in construction trades. That's according to Jim Johnson. He's a veteran UNC Chapel Hill business professor. And he actually does a lot of research about the impact of Latinos in North Carolina. And he says that we contribute in the construction, agriculture, meat processing, trucking, janitorial, maid services, and of course, there is a substantial population of professionals. As I mentioned, we have our Kathy Quiroz Moore, our superintendent here, who is a top-notch superintendent and proud Latina, as well as Lisa Luton. But also, there is a teacher that I want to talk to you briefly about, and that's Mita Edwards. And she's been Teacher of the Year 2006 and 2016. And She is a teacher that everybody knows her in Zebulon and Nidell. Every parent knows Miss Mirta, Maestra Mirta Edwards. I met Mirta 20-something years ago, and she's very instrumental in us promoting our culture because she started a dance group at the time at Zebulon Elementary. And she brought together a group of students to instill in them the pride of being Hispanic Latino and the culture. And she did it through something very interesting, dance. And if you know anything about Latinos, we love to dance. And she used the Mexican folklore to do that. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Mirta Edwards. That, by the way, she's going to be highlighted during a Hispanic Heritage Month celebration October 5th. Everybody's invited for her outstanding contribution to the WCPS families and students. So Mirta, without further ado.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for your kind words. The Mexican culture is one of the most prominent cultures in the U.S. One form of culture in the Hispanic community is the folkloric dances. In 2006, I was hired as an ESL teacher at the Zebulon Elementary GT Magnet School, and my former principal at that time, Marion Evans, asked me to build a bridge between the Hispanic community and the school. Therefore, I founded Orgullo y Alma Latina, which in English means Latin soul and pride. Orgullo and Alma Latina gave my students and parents a sense of pride and the opportunity to share their culture through their folkloric dance performances. The school principal, Mrs. Evans, kept the school building open late days during the week for dance rehearsal, opened the buildings on the weekends for the students to rehearse, and went beyond the extra mile to support the Hispanic community in the eastern area. Both the students and parents were totally dedicated to this dance group. The students gave up their playtime during the week and weekends so they could rehearse. The parents worked extra jobs and hours in order to purchase dresses, authentics from Mexico, as you can see. And the dance group also performed not only in the eastern area, they also represent the Wake County Public School system in festivals like the International Festival, Raleigh International Festival. They've been in Wilmington, Azalea Festival. They've been in El Pueblo. For 16 years, they've been dancing throughout the area. So right now, Orgullo Alma Latina has been led by the instructor, Mr. Fabian Vargas, right there. And this month, they are celebrating their 16th. They're celebrating 16 years. Yeah, they've been dancing for 16 years now. And today, Angel from Fox Elementary and Angel and Alexandra from Wildwood Elementary are proudly representing their Hispanic heritage through folkloric dancing from Jalisco, Mexico. And let's all give a round of applause for my wonderful kids. Yep. And you just go ahead. Yes, please.
There are 45 dancers, and we thought we cannot bring them all here. There's not enough space. But there are 45 dancers, and we just brought a little taste of what they can do. But also, during Hispanic Heritage Month, the celebration keeps going and going because we celebrate for a whole month. So just so you know, we have developed a WCPS Hispanic Heritage Month Spotlight. And people, Hispanic, Latino teachers and faculty and staff can nominate themselves, or somebody can nominate them. So far, we have 75 employees that have self-nominated themselves or somebody nominate them. And that is awesome. It is awesome to see their pictures, their little bios, and I am so proud to tell you that we got some great workers that really care about the education of students here in Wake County Public Schools. We also have joined the WCPS Latinx Education Alliance. As you know, we have an alliance of educators here, and so far we have 40-something new Latinos that will join this alliance of educators here, where they come together and they learn cultural competencies that they could bring back to the school and share with their other colleagues. We are also having our annual Hispanic Heritage Month, which all of you, everybody is invited, October 5th at Dillard Drive Elementary, 5:30 to 7:30. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be great. And then also we have Hispanic Heritage Month classroom resources that are being circulating so that teachers could use when they are teaching their lessons. And I just want to say muchas gracias.
Just like to say one more time, thank you for coming and sharing your gifts, your talents, your culture with us this evening. I can think of no better way to live out our core belief number 5, which states the Board of Education, Superintendent, and all staff value a diverse school community that is inviting, respectful, inclusive, flexible, and supportive. Thank you again for sharing us with this evening.
Sorry.
I mean, if we could have that blend of Arts and Education Month and, Hispanic Heritage Month, that was incredible. And a huge thank you to Ms. Edwards for starting that program, Mr. Vargas for teaching, and Angel and Alexandra for being brave enough to share their talents with us today instead of in a group of 45. And I just love that orgullo and y alma, pride and soul. We are now going to move on to public comment.
We still need to approve the agenda.
Oh, well, yeah, we're going to do that first. Thank you, Ms. Johnson-Hostler. And I was just so moved that I just skipped right past that one. Yep, thank you. All right. Thank you, Ms. Johnson-Hostler and Ms. Cash, for your motion and second of approving the meeting agenda and keeping me in line. All those in favor of approving the meeting agenda, please signify with a sign of aye. Any opposed, nay. And now we are going to move on to public comment. Public comment is accepted in video, written, and in-person formats. Members of the public are welcome to offer comments or criticism directed at substantive ideas, actions, or procedures of the board and individual board members. The laws and policies of North Carolina provide that issues or concerns involving individual personal matters are confidential and therefore not appropriate for public comment settings. Concerns related to personnel issues may be addressed through the applicable WCPSS personnel, the grievance policy, or other applicable policies. Those offering comments to the board, including students, may discuss issues and matters of general concern, but should refrain from discussing confidential student information. Concerns related to confidential student matters may be addressed through applicable WCPSS personnel, the grievance policy, or other applicable policies. The following citizens have submitted comments as part of our public comment portion for this evening's agenda. These comments are linked on the same online agenda that we are using for tonight's meeting. That agenda, as well as guidelines for those wishing to submit comments for future meetings, can be found at the school district's website, wcpss.net, under the tab labeled School Board, We have 2 written comments from members of the public. The topics and speakers who have comment are attached to our online agenda as follows: 1 on Education Equity Policy 1150, and 1 other comment included. And for those of you that are here in person, during public comment, you may speak for up to 3 minutes. A yellow light will illuminate at the podium when there are 30 seconds remaining in your time. And then a red light will signal when your time is up. In the interest of maintaining civility and decorum, however, speakers are encouraged to address their comments to the Board of Education and to refrain from personal attacks and insults directed at the board, individual board members, staff, or members of the general public. Please remain at the podium during your time. Any materials you wish to share with the board should be handed to our board attorney either before or after your comments. Mr. Blumberg over right there. All right. We have 11 people signed up for public comment, and we're going to begin with Aaron Schultz.
Good evening. My name is Erin Schultz. My pronouns are she, her. First, I want to echo what everybody said about the IAs. It's not on my topic, but I just have to say it. We have the best IAs in the world. Just have to say that. The first thing I'd like to do is commend Wake County Public Schools and the school board on the steps that you all have taken to make Wake County schools safe for gender diverse students, staff, and families. Wake County is way ahead of many other areas in the state and the country in having inclusive policies and procedures. That is seen, and I hear comments from around the country, and we're way ahead. Transgender students are a growing minority. Approximately 1.4% of 13 to 17-year-olds identify as transgender in the U.S. Applied to Wake County schools, that's approximately 1,200 students. It's not an insignificant number. It's a lot of kids. And that's just in middle and high school. That doesn't count grades K to 5. I couldn't find the statistics on those, but there are a lot of them. So that being said, our non-binary students are facing significant challenges. It's easy for binary kids, but we need more clear, comprehensive policies for non-binary students. Bathroom usage, there should be universal non-gendered bathrooms. It shouldn't be a source of anxiety. We need to make an effort to train our teachers in inclusive language instead of saying, all right, boys and girls, or pick a side, or the boys over here and the girls over there. There are other options. If you want to divide kids, ask them blue over here, red over there. What's your favorite color? What's your favorite pet? Cats and dogs. We can move past boys and girls. When addressing entire groups of students, let's say students. That's what they are. They're students. And that includes boys, girls, and everybody non-binary. It doesn't take much. And I think that there is some training that's needed for teachers and admins in using those inclusive terms. And also with families, if they're addressing groups of families, they should use that word, families, guardians, instead of moms and dads. Moms and dads excludes not just gender diverse families, but foster families, families with grandparents, aunts and uncles, and a lot of other situations. So in an effort to be inclusive, we should be careful with our wording. Let's see. Gender diversity, and particularly understanding non-binary students, should be part of continuing education for all teachers and must be mandatory. If it isn't mandatory, we're never going to reach the teachers who need the most education. But to be fair, most of the teachers that I have encountered and most of the teachers I'm aware of are sensitive to these types of needs. So we're doing a really good job. We could just do a little bit better.
Our next speaker is Fallon Seabrook.
Good evening, Mr. Harvey. I've been coming to these meetings since last year, and I hear that teachers should be respected. I understand they need to be respected, but us parents should be respected too. And I feel like we're being neglected. I feel like none of us are being heard, and it's not fair. Last school year, I was battling my daughter's school at Reedy Creek Elementary. They suggested I put her on a 4 plan because she's been battling bladder issues since she was about 3 or 4. And when she went back to in person, I told them that she had bladder issues from day one. This email makes it look like I never even said anything. What the teacher didn't address is that I had already discussed it with them. They made it seem like I didn't tell them anything. There's no transparency. I used to wonder why that was until you all are the cause of no transparency. And we need better. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Andrew Horner.
Good evening, Wake County School Board. I am Andrew Horner, a 7th grader at Heritage Middle School. I want to speak to you today regarding Dreambox and why the current requirements are inequitable. I feel that students should not be required to do 5 lessons with Dreambox each week, and I would like to explain why this is an inequitable requirement. First and most importantly, Dreambox takes a very long time to complete for some students and not for others. Many students spend 45 minutes on one lesson, and many other students can complete more than their goal of 5 lessons a week in only 10 minutes. The lessons differ for each student, but students who are doing above grade level with Dreambox lessons spend way longer on lessons than those who are doing Dreambox lessons that are targeted below grade level based on their needs. Second of all, one of the biggest time issues that students have is figuring out what Dreambox wants them to do instead of the actual math lesson. In many of the lessons, students know how to do math. It's a Dreambox layout, and knowing what Dreambox wants them to click on or do that takes them so long. At last, oftentimes there is not a dedicated Dreambox time during the school day, which means lessons have to be completed from home, and this can be hard due to the reasons I have stated. I hope you will consider modifying the Dreambox requirements, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Andrew. Julie Page.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent Moore. I haven't been here for a little while, so I'd just like to remind you that I'm just a mom, not a domestic terrorist. Moms for Liberty of Wake County held a school board candidate forum last month to which the 4 incumbents seeking re-election were all invited. None of you attended, but at least we heard from Ms. Johnson-Hostler, Ms. Mahaffey, and Ms. Waters. We never heard a thing from Mr. Haggerty. That should be very telling to the community as to the type of board member and candidate that he is. Our chapter, made of local moms, dads, and grandparents, voted on our school board candidate recommendations, and I'm pleased to inform the 4 of you that none of you made the list. The parents in this county are ready for change. We have had enough. We want better, and our kids deserve better. I have a question for all of the board members tonight. Do you agree that parents have the fundamental right to direct the education, medical care, and moral upbringing of their children? It's really a very simple question. Either parents have these basic rights or they don't. Another question, will you agree to advance policies that strengthen parental involvement and decision-making, increase transparency, defend against government overreach, and secure parental rights? If your answer is no to either of these, we have a major problem. This week, I will be emailing all of you a parent pledge to sign and return to me. The responses or lack thereof will be shared with the public. For those board members that are considered lame ducks at this point, you will also be asked to sign this. No one is off the hook here. After all, it's election season, and the time for accountability is now. We know who each of you have endorsed. We will be sending this to all school board candidates as well as others running for public office. The community will know who cares about parents and who does not. Before I go, I'd like to let you know that President Biden has officially declared the pandemic to be over. So you can drop the mask recommendations and other COVID protocols now. It's no longer necessary for Dr. Martin to bloviate on case numbers anymore. We're all sick and tired of hearing it. Early voting begins about a month from today. November 8th cannot come soon enough to finally flip this board. I and many, many others in Wake County cannot wait to celebrate. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Amy Williams.
Somebody dropped something. Good evening. Good evening, board. I'm here as a parent of 3 children attending Wake County Public Schools, and I'm not a terrorist, I'm not running for office, and I'm not out for any of the teachers and staff. In fact, I really want to publicly thank our elementary school Vance that my children just recently attended. The principal, teachers, staff at that school was very involved with the community and the parents in responding to mine and other parents concerned, and they loved our children, and it showed, and I want to thank them. But as a mother, I'm responsible for my children's health, safety, and well-being. And after March 14, 2020, it became very clear that parents were not seen or heard in the eyes of the public school board. Our children are our future entrepreneurs, leaders, and civil servants of this country, and parents knew that these closures were affecting the well-being of our children, mask mandates were affecting the health, and the lack of the school board safety is now a grave concern. And my own school district board member has never once responded or acknowledged any of my 12 emails that I sent after March 20. Thankfully, the school did not follow in her footsteps. Watching or attending these school board meetings since March 2020, parents have begged you to remove the porn books, begged you to change the math curriculums, asked what's going to be done about the learning loss, and now it's addressing school safety. But instead of including or acknowledging us with our concerns, you spend money in ways that don't remotely address them. And all this time, during your roundtable public speaking, you 9 board members brag and commend yourselves on how awesome it is being in school. You spout COVID numbers. You bring up Parents' Rights Bill, the 25-year-old Leandro case, but none of you ever mention the academic achievements at these school boards that our children are reaching, ever. I believe the direction of the school board system is steering away from what it was set up to do, to educate my children to his or her highest potential in reading, writing, math, science, and social studies. I want to quote some words from a speech by Ronald Reagan before he was president in the mid-1960s, and you can find this speech under The Myth of the Great Society. But since most of you will take this out of context, I encourage everyone to listen to or read it, and about 28 minutes into the speech, he speaks these words, and I quote, "Well, if the government is going to build the schools, buy the books, issue scholarships, make judgments, exert pressure, what if one day that pressure is of a political nature not to our liking? Education is the bulwark of freedom, but you remove it too far from the community and the parents' control, and education becomes a tool of tyranny." End quote. I stand here today. I want to publicly ask this board to get back to academic excellence, to put math, reading, science, English, and history on the forefront of teaching, education, and spending, to no longer ignore us parents, to keep politics out and parents in. We've been ignored since March 2020 when we were right about the harm being done to our children. Maybe it's time to join our side and work together.
Our next speaker is Daniel Grant King.
I would like to first of all say good evening. Excuse me for my voice is not well. I am Mr. Grant King, and currently I am running for the Wake County Board of Education, District 4, come this November. On this evening, we have had perfect examples. Excuse me. We have had perfect examples of the far right once again trying to destroy the progress that school board members have made. And as an educator and now as a candidate, I have really realized that it is time, it is high time, to have a true champion and true champions that will continue the advocacy regarding our teacher pay, regarding our safety in our schools. And of course, as I run this November along with my campaign, we have done a 4-week part series. And this week, of course, we will focus on school board policies, because we see once again that the far right has been allowed to just say whatever they wish and not be held accountable. So as I run this November, and as the voters will choose, and they will make it very clear who will represent them, because truthfully, it is not about ourselves. Each of you took an oath that you uphold, and for that I say thank you. But now we have to make it clear before you leave office. I am urging you as an educator to make it very clear that these type of actions against the educational system shall and must not be tolerated. Because for far too long, I have sat here and advocated for the issues of the people, and yet I've been attacked. And this is why I've had to hire legal counsel from out of state. And of course, I want to also make it clear that I will not be signing anything that the far right has tried to attempt. And my reason for this is to make it clear that our educational system is about the people, our students, our educators, and above all, the families that represent this school system. In closing, I would like to thank Superintendent Moore and many others for this evening as we celebrate National Hispanic Month, and let us continue to advocate for the needs
Thank you,
of the
Mr.
people.
Grant King.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Danielle Sellers.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Danielle Sellers. I go by Dee. My pronouns are they, them. I'm non-binary, and I'm a member of the LGBTQ community here in Raleigh. My wife and I have a 10-year-old daughter who's attending Wake County schools this year. And I'm here tonight because I believe that representation and visibility matters. I had no idea that we'd have an ally in the audience tonight when I decided to come speak. But the voices of community members like me aren't typically represented at school board meetings. But there are a lot of anti-LGBTQ voices that are elevated throughout the country with groups like Moms for Liberty. As a new community member here in Wake County, I felt compelled to bring my one voice to the table to ensure that you heard from a family like mine. I was an LGBTQ youth without any support system. I want to ensure that I'm doing my best to support the youth of the next generation in my community now more than ever. I specifically wanted to speak because September's National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, and the last meeting that topic was brought up, and we talked about mental health, and we acknowledged the way that this issue touches everyone, including close to home and in our own schools. Suicide is one of the leading causes of death for people 10 to 24. And in the LGBTQ community, our youth are 4 times as likely as their straight counterparts to attempt suicide. And in fact, according to the Trevor Project, 45% of LGBTQ youth have seriously considered attempting suicide in the last year, with half of transgender and non-binary youth considering it. And I bring this to you, the school board, because the reason that our youth are so affected by this topic isn't because of their identities. These kids are pushed to thoughts of self-harm by marginalization in their community. Nationally, I'm seeing that there's a rise in right-wing groups pushing school boards to ban books and discussion of families like my own, stories of experiences like mine as a queer person, attacks like Florida's Don't Say Gay legislation, censorship of books, media, anything that gives kids exposure to healthy, happy, rewarded people like them, banning trans athletes from participating in sports, Virginia banning kids from using their preferred pronouns, and forcing adults that might be supportive to out them to their unsupportive families. These things all send a message to our kids that their right to exist is under debate, that their existence is a threat to others, and that they're less deserving of love and respect than the other kids in their community. And it hurts kids to never see themselves represented, and it endangers kids when we keep educators from helping them through a difficult time. I'm here just to ask that you hear, as you're hearing from voices like Moms for Liberty, who are louder than my one voice, more persistent than my one voice, and more organized to silence the voices of community members like mine, that you listen and that you take us into account and you protect our kids as well. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Becky Lou Hobbs.
Good evening. Once again, I come before the board, a concerned mom, questioning the priorities of this board. As we're still waiting on the board to approve the final budget, let's review a few things. On the agenda tonight for academic advancement is a contract with the Committee for Children based out of Washington State. This one-year license for a social emotional learning program will cost $467,000. How many SEL programs has this board now purchased? It's an example of wasteful spending of this board who refuses to focus on the basics of education, reading, writing, mathematics, science, history. When kids are months and years behind in their learning, the board continues to make poor financial choices. You know, we've talked for a long time about learning loss. You know, that learning loss that the NCAE talked about as a false construct. Even some of you board members mocked us parents as we would ask about it. Okay, so now let's turn and compare the current operational budget to the budget from 10 years ago. Many of you were on the board at that time. So in the past 10 years, the board has increased the budget from $1.2 billion to $2.1 billion. That's about a 68% increase. In that same time period, student enrollment's only increased about 6%, which is about 10,000 students. Also in the past 10 years, when you compare the budgets, the employment months, teacher employment months has increased 14.5%. Principal and assistant employment months have increased about 37%. And then when you get to the superintendent level, all levels, assistant superintendent, area superintendent, chiefs, directors, central services, that's increased by 46%. So with a 6% student enrollment increase, positions have increased 46% and budget 68%. It just shows how financially irresponsible this board has become. And just did you know, with these positions, executive, administrative, superintendent positions, about 115 make over $100,000. It totals about $13.8 million. Giving each teacher a $1,000 raise would cost about $11 million. So our resources wisely. Education, the quality education that they deserve. We need to change things for our kids because they are our future. I'm Becky Lou Hobbs. If you want to find out more about my campaign, go to beckyforwake.com. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Monica Ruiz.
Hi, my name is Monica Ruiz. I'm running for Wake County School Board, District 2. Data. Data is what administrators say that they need when they are evaluating students academically and even behaviorally. However, the board and other higher-ups fail to examine the data of their students' poor proficiency scores. They tout their 90% graduation rate, but their proficiency rates are abhorrent. Let me give you some stats. The Office of Equity, or Inequity, as I like to call it, Affairs, or OEA, was created in the 2014-15 school year. In that year, their budget was $250,000. In that same school year, the non-proficiency rates for grades 3 through 8 were 37% in math and 34% in reading. Fast forward to the 2017-18 school year. This was the first year where they differentiated the student performance data by subgroups. For the sake of time, I will focus on a few subgroups that had the largest rates of non-proficiency in grades 3 through 8 in 2017 to 18 and 2020 to 21. In 2017 to 18, 63% of Black students were non-proficient in math. By 2020 to 21, 79% of Black students in grades 3 through 8 were non-proficient in math. So nearly 4 out of 5 Black students were not proficient in math for 3rd through 8th grades. 4 out of 5. In 2017 to 18, 58% of Black students were not proficient in reading. By 2020 to 21, 66% were not proficient in reading. In 2017 to 18, 56% of Hispanic students were not proficient in math. By 2021, 75% of Hispanic students were not proficient in math. 3 out of 4 Hispanics were not proficient in math for grades 3 through 8th. So what does this tell us? The OEA page is inaccessible to the public, so the public does not have access to their mission statement. One can assume the Office of Inequity is striving to improve the academic outcomes of our students of color, ESL students, students with disabilities, and our homeless and foster care students. By the 2020-21 school year, OEA spent $1.3 million, thus spending $8.7 million since its inception in 2014. However, the data shows that while they have spent this money, there's nothing to show for it.
Our next speaker is
Monica
Janet
Ruiz for
Peterson.
Wake.
Thank you.
Hi, I've been here before, and I've shared with you that I taught K-2 for many years in Wake County Public School. During my early years, I taught at a time when I taught at one of the largest elementary schools with over 1,000 students, had the highest free and reduced lunch, and it had the district's most amazing counselor. He implemented the Second Step program for young children at my school. He regularly trained and worked with parents for the short lessons that they would present to children. They would use puppets and picture cards, and they'd teach relevant lessons on being kind or being a friend or problem solving. It was a terrific program, and it was well managed by our skilled counselor. That program, though, was discarded years ago. Some veterans chose to hang on to the materials as they saw value. However, I have concerns about the Second Step program that you're getting ready to spend almost $500,000 on. I took a look at some reviews by the Utah Parents United and other websites and sources for the 8th grade bullying curriculum. And here are some of my concerns. These are very important things that we need to do and get right. First off, bullying is seen through a racial lens. Power and privilege were listed as one of the reasons for bullying. For what I gleaned, the lessons used almost always portrayed white students as the aggressor. Lessons are intended to encourage students to plan disruptive strategies for changing attitudes. Disruptive? Would that be defined as rowdy, unruly strategies, or groundbreaking, innovative strategies. One of the lessons has the students design a service project to reduce gender or sexual harassment so everyone in the community can feel safe. Students may be asked to plan strategies for lifestyles that they or their families do not support. When discussing sex ed and healthy relationships, hotlines and websites are given. One such site is the loveisrespect.org, and it has controversial content, including a power wheel. And I'm not talking about the writing toy, but a power and control wheel. Take a look at it for yourself. The site also includes 5 tips for the first time and dating in the closet. Now, I'm afraid that students are going to be expected to discuss very personal and sensitive subjects in mixed settings with the curriculum that I've seen referenced. Where are the professionals that are trained to present the lessons? And lastly, the parents are not even part of the children's support system when telling children the list of people they can go to for encouragement and advice. They're at the bottom of the list. Why? This used to be a great curriculum. Please do the right thing. Bring on educators, community members, and teachers to take a look at that curriculum. Do they really address bullying, or are they something else?
Our next speaker is Cheryl Caulfield. Cheryl? No? Okay, that ends our public comment. Next up, our information items continue with our superintendent updates. Ms. Moore.
Good evening again. During our work session today, we covered 2 topics. The first one was a staffing update from Human Resources with Dr. Matillo. We have made progress in a couple of areas. We continue to have about 340 teacher vacancies with a higher rate within special education teachers. We are, 97% fully staffed, but the 3% is, while that's a good percentage, less than 3%, they are disparate across our schools. Not all of them are evenly distributed. It comes out to an average of less than 2 per school, but we've got some, as we heard today, with as many as 10. I think that Human Resources talked a lot about the recruiting things, the things that are working well, the things will continue into the school year and beyond. I think I also mentioned that I do believe that one of the challenges that we're facing this year is that vacancies are likely to last longer or be open longer simply because the pool is not as plentiful as it has been in the past. So this will be something that we will need to continue to problem solve with our folks here at Central Services and in direct communication with our schools about their needs. The second item for the work session today was draft 1 of the enrollment plan. And while this next school year coming up in 23-24, we are not opening any new schools, the enrollment plan that was proposed today focuses on looking at our overcrowded and under-enrolled schools, looking at changes that will support proximity more than they are now, and that will also provide some transportation efficiencies. So this is just draft 1. We encourage folks in the community who didn't have a chance to listen to the presentation to access the materials in Assembly. The address lookup website is live for families if they'd like to see if they are potentially impacted in draft 1. There's a calendar that is a part of the presentation that also provides the timelines and the dates that input sessions will be occurring with families across our district, and encourage all to please take a look at what's on there so that you can be informed about what is in the enrollment plan draft 1 and provide feedback through the various portals that we have available. Draft 2 will then be coming back to the board in a couple of sessions. And we hope to have the enrollment plan, as per usual, adopted by around the end of November. Those are our updates.
Thank you, Superintendent Moore. We now move on to our consent items. Is there a motion?
Chair Mahaffey, I'm sorry, may I ask for a summary of the Finance Committee? Do you mind, Superintendent Moore? Because I think it's important.
Thank you.
We had a Finance Committee prior to the work session today, and in the Finance Committee, we asked our staff from Finance and Budget to really provide a more in-depth view than has been provided recently to our board members, sort of lockstep around all of the fiscal transparency practices that are in place the things that we do that are above and beyond as a school district, as practices to ensure that there are not conflicts of interests, that there are third parties when necessary, that our processes in place are transparent and available for the public to look at. Again, those documents are also available as part of assembly items and the attachments that are there, and there's a lot of information that can be found on our website.
Thank you, Superintendent Moore. I think it's important for the public to recognize the 15 years of line-by-line audits that are on our website publicly, that we have our budget clearly stated, that we have an internal audit, we have an external audit committee that looks at our budget and audits each aspect of our $2 billion budget. I think it's important for the community to recognize that. Thank you very much, Superintendent Moore.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, and thank you, Ms. Kushner. And we learned that there are no less than 5 external audits done on our budget during that meeting. So appreciate you bringing that forward, and thank you, Superintendent Moore, for adding that to the update, and Ms. Cash for bringing that to Finance Committee as our Finance Chair. Yes, ma'am.
I have something I do want to say, too, even though I know her, but I did give, it was in my comments that I gave Russ Smith credit for coming to my BAC meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But the person who really did the presentation and put it together was Kendrick Scott.
Okay.
I want to be sure I add that, and he kept Russ in task, on task.
Good.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Scott.
He often has to do that. And with that, I'm going to move approval of our consent items.
Thank you, Ms. Kushner.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to approve our consent items. All in favor? Any questions or comments or discussion? Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? All right. We're moving on to our action items, and those come from our Policy Committee. The first is Board Policy 3102, online instruction for first reading. Mr. Cook, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Mahaffey, Superintendent Moore, and board members. As a follow-up to our discussions at the August 2nd work session and also the August 30th Policy Committee meetings, we're bringing 2 policies before you tonight related to temporary remote emergency instruction. The policy revisions that are being recommended are in response to Senate Bill 671 and will ensure alignment with the new legislation. The first of the 2 policies we're bringing for first reading is Policy 3102, online instruction. The policy, as currently written, already authorizes the Wake County Public School System to conduct classes remotely, but the recommended revisions will include the maximum amount of instructional days or hours that can be used for temporary remote instruction as defined by the legislation. So to that end, in Section B, remote instruction, the first revision that you'll see is to add the language, quote, for up to 5 remote instruction days or 30 remote instruction hours during emergency situations as the maximum amount of time that can be used for remote instruction, while also in that same paragraph striking the phrase referencing ongoing remote instruction since that is no longer applicable under the law. The next revision that you'll see in Policy 3102 is to ensure that the definition of an emergency situation in our policy is parallel to that of SB 671. The updated language there includes, quote, energy shortage and power failures, end quote, as an emergency situation to match the language in the legislation. And finally, we've also included a legal reference to GS 115C-84.3 in the policy as well. One important item to note on this policy, going back to the discussion that many of you had in the Board Policy Committee on August the 30th, we will be incorporating language into the associated R&P that outlines additional parameters that the superintendent will follow in considering a move to emergency remote instruction. And specifically, a section will be added to the R&P that states something to the effect of, quote, in addition to the emergency parameters outlined by law, the superintendent will consider the use of remote instruction days only in circumstances where all bank days and work days have been exhausted for the applicable instructional calendar, or when scheduled vacation days or additional school days would be the last remaining option for use as makeup days, end quote. We will be bringing 3102 R&P with this revision to the board for further review and discussion at next week's Policy Committee meeting on September the 27th. At this time, happy, of course, to answer any questions or share additional information as needed.
Okay. questions, comments, discussion? Ms. Kushner?
Chair Mahaffey, I move approval of the revisions to policy 3102, online instruction, for first reading. And as Mr. Cook has said in detail, it is really to align with state statute and limit the use of remote instruction only during absolutely necessary times in accordance to state statute.
Thank you, Ms. Kushner. Appreciate that as you being chair of our policy committee. Is there a second? Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Yes? No? Maybe? Yeah. Now's the time.
I just had a question, because this policy is also, well, it also impacts the next one that we'll get to in a minute. But then at 4,400 attendance, because will we be going back to edit that to make the definitions match up? Or, so I just thought about that, but it's linked in 4,400. Because I was going back to look over the different stuff, because the next one, I'll bring up that question, but.
So we can definitely go back and ensure that any cross-references are aligned as well to 4,400 in terms of definitions or any other language. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, thank you. And I do appreciate the parameters that are being put forthcoming next week in the R&P.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no more hands, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, nay? All right, motion passes. Mr. Cook, you're staying on for policy 3,300.
Yes, ma'am. The next policy that we're bringing before you for first read this evening, again, related to emergency remote instruction, is policy 3,300, school calendar and time for learning. The revisions that have been made to this policy are in section D, school calendar. You'll see that number 10 now reads, quote, "The superintendent, with notification to the board, may choose to use up to 5 remote instruction days or 30 remote instruction hours during an emergency situation as permitted by law and as outlined in the R&P on online instruction. For purposes of this policy, an emergency situation includes a natural disaster, inclement weather, public health emergency, energy shortage, power failures, or other situation that threatens the health and safety of employees, students, or the community," end quote. This language, again, aligns with SB 671. Again, you'll note the reference to the additional parameters that will be outlined in 3102 R&P that provide further guidance to the superintendent on additional factors that should be considered beyond what is outlined in the legislation. And finally, again, we've included legal reference to GS 115C 84.3 in policy as well. Again, happy to answer any questions for the board.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Ms. Kushner.
Thank you. I move approval, make a motion to move approval of policy code 3,300, school calendar and time for learning to align with state statute for on first reading.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Second. All right. Thank you, Ms. Johnson-Hostler. Ms. Carter, and then Vice Chair Hegarty.
I guess my question was, more of a technicality, since the R&P hasn't been updated yet, but the policy, to me, it reads like it's outlined already in the R&P. So I guess it's more of a, since it's not really there, then.
I see Mr. Blumberg.
Does that make sense?
I mean, the only thing that I could say, sure, is that this is here for first reading. So the idea would be that the R&P would be done by the end of this month, and by the time this comes back and is approved, you would have an R&P. But it's a fair point to make, and yes, you would want to have the R&P done by the time that the board finally approves the policy. But this is first reading.
And we did discuss exactly that. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And this is also a timing question. And Mr. Cook, I don't want to put you on the spot if Dr. Crane is available too. We've had some discussions before recently about school calendar, which is included in this policy. And whether or not as board policy we would want to provide direction to the calendar committee and the calendar folks, for example, like surrounding school attendance on election day. Mm-hmm. I know we have a schedule for policy migration, and we're trying to advance the policies as fast as we can. But is this a situation where, because we've brought this one up, that we might want to go back and provide any direction, since we've talked about this individually at the board level? Or was it better, and I guess I'm just asking for staff's opinion, because of other pending pressures, should we go ahead, review just this change in isolation, and then consider those changes in a different policy revision?
I'll let Ms. Crane jump in, and then I'll share my thoughts.
I was going to suggest that something along the lines of ensuring that the calendar committee we don't generally put calendar committee provisions, so to speak, in policy. That either could be something that is part of R&P, perhaps, that we may want to add in terms of the preferences that the board has expressed, or it could be something along guidance and guidelines that are provided to the calendar committee, either one. But I probably wouldn't put it in policy because it's a preference of this board, and put it in R&P instead, or in guidance. Is
I see
that
Dr.
aligned with you?
Crane
Okay.
nodding her head.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And there's already so many state statute that guides and restricts our calendar. So I don't know if we would be able to put even more parameters. We may never get a calendar.
Well, but see, honestly, I was going to let it go. I was going to let it go, but in response to Ms. Kushner's comment, part of the construction of the policy is so specific to all of the specific state requirements that we do have, which, as we know, could change at any time. And so do we want this level of specificity within the policy such that we'll have to keep bringing it up every time that there are any state-mandated changes or additions, as we've seen over the last few years? Or is it something that our policy should be maybe more flexible, mirroring and complying with the state requirements, but not necessarily having to come in and require an amendment to policy every time the legislature suggests we have a calendar change? I don't know. I just throw that out there.
Dr. Martin. Oh.
Well, I was going to say, if I could make a point to that, that's part of the reason why
Sorry,
we
Jonathan.
have everything aligned with the School Boards Association, because, the alignment, they really are flagging when there's a change at the legislature, and when we have it aligned, we're going to get that flag and can make that update. And so our policies need to reflect the state statute. Most of our language in policy, we actually take direct statute language. So if statute changes, obviously we have to change it, but that's, again, why we have it parallel with the School Board Association, so that when statutes change, it's a flag, and it becomes straightforward to bring it to the board.
The longest 2-year policy migration ever. Mr. Blumberg.
So Dr. Martin said what I was going to say, which I appreciate. And in terms of the timing, this is a legislative change that we should include in this policy, and it aligns with the change that you just approved on first reading on the last one. So I would not wait to get this one in place. That said, the board always has the authority to look at this, and if there's certain important philosophies that the board has about calendar that you want to put in policy, you can do that. I'm mindful of the superintendent's position on it, but just in terms of board authority, if there's certain key principles that you feel like you need to have in policy that are tied to the calendar, then it can be considered in the policy committee and added to it. That's where. But in terms of the here and now, my guidance would be that you'd get this legislative change approved.
Okay.
Thank you. So I will concede and I will let this one go, but the thought being that we can have some future discussion about it, because while we do follow the recommendations that come from the School Boards Association, I can't think, of about half the policies that come to us through the migration, we do end up customizing somehow for Wake County and just for our own individual systems. So we do take their lead, but again, we do customize as well here for our families and our staff and everyone. Thank you.
Perhaps a policy committee meeting would be good to see what the School Boards Association has taken from our changes, because I feel like there are a lot of updates that we've provided that they've then adopted.
We have been a consultant for the system.
Yes. No, we have to pay them. Yeah, no, we pay them. No. All right. Hearing no further comments or questions, all those in favor of adopting policy 3300, school calendar and time for learning on first reading, please signify with a sign of aye. Any opposed, nay? Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Up next is Board Policy 6402, participation by historically underutilized businesses on first reading. And with us is Mr. Mark Winters, our Finance Officer.
Thank you, Chair Mahaffey, Superintendent Moore, and members of the board. I'm here to present to you the first reading of Policy 6402, Participation by Historically Underutilized Businesses. This is a new policy created by the North Carolina School Boards Association as part of their Policies to Lead the Schools Manual and as part of the Policy Migration Project. It was reviewed at the March 29th and August 30th Policy Committee meeting. Please note we added language that aligned with our existing prohibition against discrimination, harassment, and bullying. You'll see that added language at the beginning of the policy. Tonight, we request the board's approval of the first reading of Policy 6402, Participation by Historically Underutilized Businesses.
Ms. Kushner?
Thank you, Chairman Haffey, and on behalf of the Policy Committee, make a motion to approve revisions to, or the new policy, Participation by Historically Underutilized Businesses, 6402, for first reading.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion, comments, or questions for Mr. Winters? Ms. Kushner?
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, thank Mr. Winters and his staff, because between March and August, you did take our feedback under consideration and brought this revised policy. So thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
And to my the fellow board members who gave that useful feedback. I think we came up with a very good policy. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no more hands, all those in favor of approving first reading of Board Policy 6402, please signify with a sign of aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. All right. We did go into closed session after our work session. And in that, we heard our human resources recommendations for appointments and employment. If we could get a motion to approve the HR recommendations. Thank you. We have a motion from Dr. Martin, a second from Ms. Scott. All those in favor, please signify with a sign of aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. All right. We then will be returning to closed session. I do not believe we need to read the reasons previously stated.
It's on the printed agenda and for previously stated reasons.
Okay, so you can find those reasons on the printed agenda and previously stated at the end of our work session.
So, Chair Mahaffey, at this time, I would move that we return to closed session for those reasons so stated in the public agenda.
I second that.
All right. Thank you, Vice Chair Hegarty and Ms. Cash. All those in favor of returning to closed session, please signify with a sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right. We return back into closed session. Thank you all very much.